Hey, how's it going, y'all? With the recent release of the 80 UHM skinny mast from AFS Foils, we thought it'd be a great time to go over the mast lineup from AFS. Today we'll focus on everything that's in the 80 centimeter size, but definitely check out the website as there's a lot more sizes, and we'll go over some of those. But primary focus is to just go over essentially four different constructions, some of the nuances with the AFS mast, and some of the evolutions over time. So we'll start with the 80HR. The HR mast is the entry-level price point mast for AFS. I think it's probably the best bang for the buck mast in the market, period. 16 millimeters with 16 millimeters thick with 135 millimeter cord, so very good dimensions at a price point that rivals a lot of aluminum. One thing to note, all of the masts all have the same connection to the fuselage. So if you get an 80HR, you can go use it with the ultra downwind foil, which is our highest end downwind foil. There's total interchangeability. So back to the 80HR. Really solid construction. Because of that long cord and that relatively thick profile, it is really stiff. One thing to note across all of these, I would say for most folks they're going to feel equally stiff. The 80HR is probably just barely the stiffest, followed by the 80 UHM, and then the 80HR and the 80 UHMS are about the same stiffness. But the 80HR, definitely a beast of a mast. I think it's highly underrated. Probably one of AFS's greatest products, just when you combine the price point and the dimensions and the performance attributes. Moving up from there, we have the 80HM, which, as you can tell, you get a little thinner. You go down to 15 millimeters. The cord goes down to 120 millimeters. So you get a slight increase in performance, still at a pretty good price point, because we're using HM fiber, not UHM. So that's a great option. Moving from there, you get to the 80 UHM. So you get a little thinner, 13.8 millimeters, and then 115 millimeter cord. This has been the AFS standard bearer mast for the last 2 years. Pretty epic performance. Again, actually great performance for bang for the buck for the UHM mast. Great price point for what you get. And now we have the new 80 UHM skinny, which one thing to keep in mind with the UHM masts, and excuse me, I'm in total Neanderthal, so if I'm stating things wrong when it gets too technical, please excuse me, but the UHM feels heavier, it feels denser. So I haven't actually weighed these, but I'd be willing to bet that the 80HR is actually the lightest. And you can definitely feel that there is more UHM fiber within the skinny than the regular one. And that's because of the decreased dimensions, because we're all the way down to 13.2 millimeters thick and 105 millimeter cord. With those dimensions, they had to put more UHM in the mast itself, and that increases the weight of it and the price point, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say. You'll notice on this one, they've got what they're calling heavy duty inserts. The inserts were redesigned. There were historically mostly on the UHM mast a couple issues that popped up mostly last year, spring a year ago into midsummer. Spring a year ago, the main issue was with the joint here in the base plate. We had some separations, but that anecdotally appears to have largely been taken care of, because I don't really see any of those come back. Then in the summer, some inserts in the 80 and 85 UHMs were set up wrong, and so you saw breakage here at this point because of the leverage. Now, as the foils get higher aspect, the spans get bigger, as rider performance increases, we're seeing more and more torsion. So a new insert was designed recently, and that'll get rolled out throughout all the UHM masts. But since this 80 skinny just came out, it's got that new graphic kind of highlighting the heavy duty insert. Going back, the HR comes in a lot of different sizes: 55, 65, 80, and 85. The HM is 80 and 85. The UHM normal is 80, 85, 95, and then the 95 there's a free ride version and a race version. The race version has a built-in 2 degrees of rake, and part of that is just you're going to be going faster if you're racing, and the 95 centimeter mast, mathematically it helps to have a bit of rake. In the skinny you've got 75, 80, and 85. So a lot of great size options. While we're talking sizes, the 75 was the first skinny that came out, and AFS always has and will continue to have a huge focus on price point and keeping things in relative balance. And so that first 75 actually used less UHM fiber than the 80 and the 85 skinnies do. So no reason for that was they wanted to hit a certain price point. But I think that set a negative impression on the skinnies because that 75 is definitely softer than the 80 skinny, and 85 skinny is actually probably the it is the softest out of all of them. It is fully functional and great mast for most folks. As long, I would say, where you start feeling it is probably 200-pound plus riders on 1050, 1100-ish bigger foils. Depending on which foil, like the silks pull the least on the mast because of the aspect ratio. On the enduro, you can probably start feeling it around 900 square centimeters just because you've got that higher aspect. The ultra 750, honestly, I feel it at 170-ish pounds. I can feel the mast wiggling with that ultra. But just because you've tried the 75 and thought it was too soft, don't write off the 80 and the 85. The other thing to keep in mind, some folks sometimes confuse instability and increased twist from a short cord with softness, which are two very different feelings. What's I found really interesting is wake is a great place to see and feel mast torsion. I think just having the nice consistent wake, and then you can just kind of stand right on top of the mast, and with an Ultra 750 or an Enduro 1600, just kind of jiggle your toes and your heels, and you'll notice how much the mast flexes, and that's valid for all brands. And it's really interesting, as we've dialed up aspect ratios on a lot of these foils, you start finding things that you necessarily didn't see before. But I can tell you from very scientific anecdotal uses, the 80 skinny and the 85 skinny are significantly stiffer than the 75, and the 75 is, I would say probably 15-20% softer than any other AFS mast out there. So not to say it's not a great mast. It was actually my favorite mast until the 80 skinny came around. And really for me, the 80 skinny takes the cream because I can use it for everything. I can use it for prone, for wake, for wing. And now I'm riding at a consistent mast height, and I'm getting a little better. Not much, don't worry, but a little bit. So yeah, this 80 skinny is my new fave. But I still have a very soft spot for the 80 HR. I think that's just such a fantastic piece of kit to have. Another thing to note, a question we often get is the mast to plate bolts are M8 and they're flat, for lack of a better term, versus the cone heads that you see on a lot of masts. We've noticed puts less pressure on the open feet, and you cannot use cone head hardware on these masts. It will void your warranty, it will damage the mast, and we will likely be able to tell if that's happened. So use the hardware it came with. If you run out of hardware, or somehow it ships without hardware, feel free to contact us. Happy to make it right and help you guys out, help get you back on the water ASAP. But that wraps it up for the Mast. Thanks, y'all.